Monterrey, 1946. Mexico is going through its industrial transformation. The roads need heavy transportation, but everything has to be imported from the United States. On a small plot of land that's 70,500 square meters in San Nicolas de los Garza, a man from humble origins, without a university education, decided that Mexico could make its own vehicles. His name was Gregorio Ramírez González, and on August the 2nd of that year, he founded Trailers de Monterrey. What started as repairing imported trailers turned into the Ramírez Industrial Group, an almost forgotten legend of Mexican industry. To understand Gregorio Ramírez's legacy, we need to understand the Mexico of that time. In 1940, the country had barely 20 million inhabitants and an emerging industrialization. The economy depended mainly on agriculture and mining, while transporting goods faced monumental challenges. Paved roads were scarce. Most paths were dirt roads, turning into mud pits during the rains. And vehicles for heavy transportation simply weren't manufactured in Mexico. Everything came from abroad. Ford, Chevrolet, International Harvester. American brands completely dominated the market, but the problem got dramatically worse. World War II had broken out in 1939, and by 1941, the United States diverted all its industrial production toward the war effort. Getting new trucks became almost impossible. Prices skyrocketed. Waiting times stretched to months, even years. Spare parts were in short supply. For Mexican transportation entrepreneurs, the situation was critical. Their fleets were aging without any chance of replacement. Mexico needed its own solutions, and it needed them urgently. It was in this context that Monterrey emerged as an industrial hub, benefiting from the boom of the Fundidora de Acero steel foundry, which supplied materials to the United States. In this industrial city in the north, a young man from humble origins was about to change the landscape of Mexican transportation. His name, Gregorio Ramírez González. Gregorio Ramírez González was born on March 30, 1913, in Sabinas Hidalgo, Nuevo León, into a poor family whose livelihood came from a small store. His formal education ended in 5th grade. He wasn't a certified engineer, nor had he studied abroad. He was simply a man with vision and unbreakable determination. He decided to move to Monterrey, leaving his family in Sabinas Hidalgo to work in his uncle's restaurant. It was a modest start, but Gregorio observed, learned, and studied opportunities. In 1940, he married Maria Jauregui, a young woman from a well-known family in Aguascalientes. Together, they would have 5 children: Juan Gregorio, Guillermina, Clara, Gloria, and Rosa. After the marriage, Gregorio started working at an automobile dealership. There, something crucial happened. He met clients who desperately needed trucks and heavy transportation vehicles. He saw the problem firsthand. Mexico didn't produce these vehicles, and importing them was becoming more difficult and expensive. Gregorio Ramírez was observant. He studied every vehicle that came into the dealership. He learned about the truck and bus market. He identified unmet needs, and he began to formulate a bold plan. On August 2, 1946, in a modest workshop set up on a piece of land in San Nicolas de los Garza on Avenida Universidad, near the University Stadium, Gregorio Ramírez officially founded Trailers de Monterrey. The plot was 7,500 square meters, and in that space an extraordinary story would begin. Ramírez's initial strategy was smart and practical. He didn't intend to manufacture every component from scratch, which was impossible with the available technology. Instead, he focused on repairing and rebuilding imported dry trailers. He bought parts in the United States and adapted them, improved them, rebuilt them for Mexican conditions. This experience allowed him to study the construction of heavy vehicles in depth. He learned about chassis welding, suspension systems, material strength. Every rebuilt trailer was a lesson in practical engineering, and most importantly, he began developing his own designs. The transporters who brought their equipment to Trailers de Monterrey discovered something valuable. Ramírez didn't just repair, he improved. His rebuilds lasted longer. They withstood Mexican roads full of potholes better. He adapted the vehicles to each client's specific needs. By 1952, just 6 years after its founding, Trailers de Monterrey had become the first Mexican automotive company. The modest workshop had transformed into a real factory, and Gregorio was ready to take the next step. produce his own complete vehicles under the Ramírez brand. In 1953, Trailers de Monterrey launched its first bus, the Sultana. This name would become a legend in Mexican transportation, recognized on every road in the country for decades. The first Sultana buses used imported engines from General Motors. In fact, more than 80% of the initial components were imported. But Ramírez didn't see this as a weakness, but as a starting point. With each model, he increased the national content, developed local suppliers, and improved designs. The evolution was impressive. First came the Sultana Super Imperial TM37 7D, then the Model 7, followed by the Super Imperial 8. In 1959, Ramírez launched a revolutionary innovation, the first panoramic bus manufactured in Mexico. People affectionately called it the Hunchback because of its characteristic raised rear hump. The Sultana buses were designed specifically for Mexico. They had reinforced springs to withstand the potholes on roads and dirt paths. Their suspension systems could absorb the punishment of thousands of kilometers in tough conditions. They weren't the most luxurious buses in the world, but they were practically indestructible. The main transportation companies in the country adopted the Sultana buses: Transportes del Norte, Los Chihuahuenses, Tres Estrellas de Oro, Transportes del Pacífico, Transportes Norte de Sonora, Autotransportes La Alteña, Autobuses de Occidente, Autotransportes Montem, Estrella Roja, and Estrella de Oro. All of them trusted these Mexican buses, but the conquest didn't stop in Mexico. The virtues of the Sultana buses were appreciated in Latin America. Transportation companies from Peru, Colombia, Argentina, Guatemala, Honduras, and Paraguay began importing these Mexican buses. The SP Super Panoramico model, equipped with 40 luxury seats, a cafeteria, a reading lounge, air conditioning, and restrooms, was exported to the Southern Cone. By the early 1970s, at its peak, the Ramírez Industrial Group dedicated 35% of its production to exports. Mexico was selling buses to South America. It was an extraordinary achievement. But Gregorio Ramírez didn't settle for buses. In 1959, Trailers de Monterrey began production of the heavy Ramírez truck. These tractor-trailers came equipped with 12 and 15-speed DUS transmissions and Cummins diesel engines of 180, 220, 250, and 320 horsepower. Between 1959 and 1961, fewer than 350 of these heavy trucks were built. They were robust vehicles designed for freight transportation in the difficult conditions of Mexican roads. Each unit was adapted to the client's specific needs. But Gregorio Ramírez's most ambitious and personal project was yet to come. In the mid-1960s, he observed how vehicles like the Jeep and Ford Bronco were becoming popular in Mexico for rural and family activities. All of them were imported. Ramírez saw an opportunity. Between 1965 and 1975, Trailers de Monterrey produced the Rural Ramírez 750, the only pickup truck conceived, designed, and manufactured entirely in Mexico. It wasn't an assembly of foreign components. It was Mexican design, Mexican manufacturing, Mexican engineering. The Rural 750 had a six-cylinder engine of 225 cubic inches, made by Automex, with 133 horsepower. Its load capacity was 750 kilograms, hence the name. It had a 3-speed manual transmission and 4x4 traction. It was available in both gasoline and diesel. It wasn't a fancy truck. It was functional, robust, designed for hard work. Its side mirrors, bumpers, and wheels resembled those of the trailers and trucks the company made. It was a vehicle oriented toward the countryside, industry, rough terrain, a beast for heavy tasks in fields and rugged paths. The Rural 750 even appeared in an episode of El Chapulín Colorado, driven by Ramón Valdez. This immortalized it in Mexican popular culture. Approximately 1,000 units of the Rural Ramírez 750 were produced. Today, these trucks are extremely valuable collector's items, with values exceeding 500,000 pesos in good, restored condition. Before continuing, do you think this was bravery or madness? If you want, leave your opinion in the comments. I read them very carefully, and if you're enjoying this story, a simple like helps a lot to get this video to more people. Now, let's continue. The success of Trailers de Monterrey drove an unprecedented expansion. Gregorio Ramírez invited his brothers to participate, and the family business transformed into an industrial conglomerate. In 1957, Industria Automotriz S.A. was established, dedicated to manufacturing wheels, stampings, assembly, and subassembly. In 1958, Ramírez acquired Banco Monterrey, whose slogan was, "Your friendly bank." Later, in 1964, he bought Sociedad General de Crédito. That same year, 1964, Berg de Mexico S.A. was founded to produce air brakes for heavy vehicles. In 1982, it would be renamed Industrias Bortec. In 1970, he acquired Industrias Metálicas Monterrey. By the end of the 1960s, the Ramírez Industrial Group was manufacturing more than 50 different models of transportation vehicles. It had 4 large plants installed in Nuevo León, operating at 60% capacity. In 1978, the holding company Grupo Industria Ramírez was formally established, consolidating all the companies. Gregorio Ramírez was invited to participate in the exclusive Group of 10. He presided over Caintra in Nuevo León and received multiple recognitions as an outstanding citizen and visionary entrepreneur. He was a member of the Rotary Club and part of the select group of the most influential Mexicans of his time. In 1963, Ramírez presided over the Fábrica Nacional de Automóviles Borgart, located in Escobedo. He brought the entire German plant to Mexico, producing automobiles that competed with Mercedes-Benz. Although the plant closed in 1970 due to costs and royalties, it represented a bold attempt to produce luxury cars in Mexico. However, the history of the Ramírez Industrial Group faced monumental challenges that eventually limited its scope. In 1951, the Mexican federal government had created Diesel Nacional, known as DINA, to assemble passenger buses. But DINA wasn't an ordinary company. It had government backing, public budget to operate, and protectionist policies that favored it. Trailers de Monterrey had to compete unequally. While DINA received public funds, Ramírez depended solely on his sales. The government policies of the 1960s had imposed tariff barriers on imports, which benefited both companies. But when DINA needed financial support, the government provided it. Ramírez didn't have that backing. The situation got complicated during the economic crisis of the 1980s. In September 1982, President José López Portillo nationalized the Mexican banking system, including Ramírez's Banco Monterrey. It was a devastating blow. At the same time, Mexico began opening its economy to vehicle imports. The big international automakers established plants in the country. Ford, General Motors, Volkswagen, Nissan arrived with massive investments, cutting-edge technology, and economies of scale that no Mexican company could match. According to industrial historians, the company also faced management problems and poor investment handling. The competition and economic challenges ended up eroding the business's viability. In 1981, the Sultana buses stopped being produced. The competition with DINA had been unsustainable. The other production lines closed gradually during the 1980s and 90s. On February 4, 2002, Don Gregorio Ramírez González passed away in Monterrey at the age of 88. His son Juan Gregorio Ramírez tried to continue the legacy, but the decline of the business group was inevitable. By the first decade of the 21st century, the Ramírez Industrial Group had disappeared. Today, few Ramírez vehicles remain. Some collectors in Nuevo León preserve restored units of the Rural 750 and Sultana buses. In transportation museums and classic vehicle meetups, examples occasionally appear, causing admiration among experts. Why does this story matter? Why remember a company that eventually closed when Mexico today has a massive automotive industry? Because the Ramírez Industrial Group proved something fundamental, that Mexico had the capacity, talent, and ingenuity to create its own automotive industry. In an era of total technological dependence, a man from humble origins, without a university education, built a company from scratch that exported vehicles to South America. Today, Mexico is the 7th largest vehicle producer in the world, with more than 3 million units annually. But there is no Mexican-owned national automotive brand. The entire industry belongs to subsidiaries of foreign corporations. We assemble, but we don't design. We manufacture, but we don't innovate under our own brands. Was that the right decision? The debate continues. On one hand, we have jobs and massive production. On the other, we lost the opportunity to develop our own technology and brands. Gregorio Ramirez's story teaches us that innovation doesn't require unlimited resources. Sometimes restrictions force creativity, scarcity demands ingenuity, and one person's vision can change entire industries. In a Mexico that imported all its industrial equipment, a self-taught mechanic decided that his country deserved to manufacture its own vehicles. He didn't found an empire that lasted centuries. He didn't defeat the multinationals, but he proved it was possible. And in that demonstration, in that act of faith in national capabilities, lies the true legacy of Gregorio Ramírez González. Every time we see a bus or truck manufactured in Mexico, even if it bears a foreign logo, we should remember that there were pioneers who tried it first. Men who believed Mexico could be more than just an assembly country. Men like Gregorio Ramírez, who with vision, determination, and hard work, built the foundations of what could have been a true Mexican automotive industry. Yeah,